So the Arrowverse is one of, I want to say, comic books' most important universes at the moment. You've got the MCU, you've got the DCEU, you've got the Marvel Netflix universe, and you've got the Arrowverse. But the Arrowverse is one of the most well known, I want to say, with maybe just the MCU beating it out. You think of The Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, those CW shows are so popular outside of actually watching them on TV. They're all over Netflix. The marketing for them is always crazy. It's kind of insane how popular these shows are. And it is one of my all-time favorite comic book universes. I love Arrow, I love Flash. I've been watching these since Arrow season 1 and I can't get enough of them. They all have some serious lows, but they also all have some serious highs. So I thought I would try and rank them. Now, I just want to say before getting into this that I'm not just ranking the core 4 shows. Um, I'm including Black Lightning in this. I know it's unofficially, well, it's officially not part of the Arrowverse, per as everyone who talks about it, but it's on the CW. It's very much in tone with, say, Arrow, and I think that when Crisis on Infinite Earths comes around, it's very likely this show's going to be looped in with the rest of them. I will also be including the 1990 Flash show in this because it is officially part of the Arrowverse as of the recent crossover Elseworlds with John Wesley Shipp's Flash from that show showing up. I'm also going to be including Constantine. That's actually one of the iffy ones as well. That isn't officially part of the Arrowverse. John Constantine, who appears in Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow, and that isn't actually officially the same Constantine from his own show. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, but we don't know for definite if his show is in this universe, and it's likely that John Constantine we know from Legends is a different version of the character who's just very similar. And I will not be including the animated shows in this. So Vixen, The Ray, all those aren't going to be included because while I have seen most of them, I just don't care about them at all. And there's also so many continuity problems with them that you're actually better off not thinking of them as part of the Arrowverse than you are. So, yeah. In 7th place, I have Constantine. Now, a lot of people consider this movie an underrated gem. They think, oh no, how is this cancelled? It's so good. I think the complete opposite. I think this show had a lot of problems, and while yes, Matt Ryan is one of the best cast comic book characters of all time, I think the show itself has far too many problems and kind of deserved to be cancelled. I'm so happy he got resurrected in form as coming back into these shows, but his solo outing just I didn't think was that great. His supporting cast wasn't that interesting. The only one I was really interested in was Jim Corrigan, who's the Spectre. That was the only one that I was kind of like, yeah, I would like to watch him. It was cool seeing stuff like Doctor Fate, all those little Easter eggs. But overall, the only reason I watched this show was for Matt Ryan as John Constantine, and all of the side stuff with all the other characters just didn't really interest me. Another reason why this show kind of isn't canon anymore is that John's friend Richie was actually John Deegan, the bad guy in Elseworlds. Yeah, I know you can say, well, Seeing has been two characters once, but Seeing, when he was in Arrow, he was a really minor character who had like a brief 5-minute appearance. John Deegan was a pretty big character, and Richie was a pretty big character. So those are two important characters that it's not the same as, say, seeing a minor character come back as a bigger character. In 6th place, I have the 1990s Flash show. Yes, this show was great. For its time, it was amazing. But the thing is that despite how good it was, I don't think it lives up to current comic book television. We've just gotten so far in terms of comic book interpretations that this show it just doesn't match up. And one thing that I think this show did well that the current Flash show doesn't is that it showed Barry or the Flash helping just regular people rather than having to take down a supervillain every episode. It was great, whereas the Flash, we haven't really seen him just save ordinary people that much since the early seasons. And now it's all just taking down supervillains, stuff like that. And so I think this show did excel at that, whereas the newer show didn't really. But overall, I think that this is kind of boring to watch now. Every episode borderlines on 50 minutes, and while it's fun seeing all this stuff, it definitely has a ton of slow episodes. And while saying that yes, this show did get Barry saving normal people right, whereas the new show didn't, It also can be said that this show has him saving normal people far too much. And pretty much every episode is just about Barry taking down a normal street thug or street criminal or street gang or whatever. There are supervillains, sure, like Captain Cold and the Trickster, but they're very much toned down to be realistic, and that can get slightly boring. In fifth place, I have Supergirl. So Supergirl, I do have a soft spot for. I love all the characters in this show. I think that this show definitely has some great stories to tell, and it does have some of the better episodes in the Arrowverse. For example, the first two episodes of season 2, some of the episodes in season 4, they all can live up with the Arrowverse's best. The only thing is that Supergirl has far, far, far more bad than it has good. Season 4 is the only season so far that I would genuinely call good. Season 1 is interesting and unique. It's so different because season 1 was on CBS, so it was different from the other CW seasons. But other than that, there's not much props I can give to this show. Season 2 and 3 both started out promising, but delved into some properly bad stuff. And I think that Supergirl is just kind of, out of the core 4 shows, I think Supergirl is consistently the worst show. This is the only season so far that I think can live up with some of the rest of the seasons. In fourth place, I have Black Lightning. Now, admittedly, I'm not as invested into Black Lightning as I am in the core 4 shows. For example, where I would, if I'm watching an episode of the core 4, I would devote all my attention to that. I would make sure I'm doing nothing else while I'm watching it. Black Lightning, however, I like to put on while I'm playing something small that I don't need to give my full attention to it, or if I'm writing stuff or whatever, I'll put Black Lightning on so that I see the episode and give the episode a decent amount of attention, but I'm not only watching it. But quality-wise, I think it's undisputably one of the better shows in this universe. I think undisputably it is better than Supergirl, and while season 2 so far I do think isn't as good as season 1, it's still doing some pretty cool stuff. I do want to see this show brought in with the other shows, and if this show ever does get officially brought into the Arrowverse, I think I will start giving it my full attention rather than relegating it to something smaller. It's a fun show, the characters are interesting. I just still think that it doesn't match up with the top 3, which I'm getting into now. So in third place, I have DC's Legends of Tomorrow. A lot of people call this the best of the Arrowverse shows. The funnest, the cheesiest, all that stuff. And yeah, I can see why people would think that. It's a show that you really don't have to take seriously. As a matter of fact, if you take it seriously, you're going to not get much out of it. The only thing is that I honestly think that season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow is the only genuinely good season. Well, I think the other seasons are enjoyable, they're watchable. I just think that season 2 is one of the best seasons Arrowverse has put out. Season 1 has a bunch of problems, still enjoyable. Season 3, however, I liked it, but I thought that Malice, the villain, was terrible. And so far, Season 4, I think, is the worst season since Season 1. I think Season 4 definitely isn't that great. Whereas Season 2, I think, is the peak of Legends of Tomorrow, and the show might never reach that point again. I just thought that Legion of Doom was a perfect villain for the team. You know, you're bringing a bunch of villains from the other shows in to fight the Legends. That was such a good idea, and I would love them to do something like that again. Also, the Justice Society of America, things like that. This season just had so much going right, and I think that if season 2 ended up not being as good as it was, I think that this show, like Legends, probably would be in 5th place. It would probably be in Supergirl's place with Black Lightning and Supergirl moved up. It was just season 2 that has pushed Legends of Tomorrow to the heights that I think can match the main 2 shows. In 2nd place, I have The Flash. Now, I just want to say that while this show is in 2nd place, the last 2 seasons have been some of the absolute worst we've seen out of comic book television. I think season 4 and season 5 are borderline unwatchable. So far, season 5 has done pretty much nothing I can point to and say I liked. Season 4 was very much the same, but season 4 gave us Ralph Dibny, and I love Ralph. They're just written terribly. The villains have been terrible, and honestly, if season 4 and season 5 was the quality of the entire show, then The Flash would probably be one of my most hated comic book TV shows. That said, however, I think seasons 1 to 3 are great. I know a lot of people hate season 3, and that's fair. Season 3 also has a lot of problems, but I do really enjoy it. Seasons 1 and 2 are some of the absolute best comic book television has put out. I would put them on par with Daredevil, on par with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all of that stuff. They had brilliant villains, they had brilliant characters, they were written amazingly. They had so much going for it. Season 3 brought it down a bit with a little bit of an underwhelming villain. Yeah, well, a very underwhelming villain. The writing wasn't as good. You could definitely feel the quality dropping. But seasons 1 and 2 were the golden years of The Flash. And I think seasons 1 and 2 can be looked at and pointed to as what The Flash could be if The Flash, if in the movies, I would love if they took notes from season 1 and 2 of the TV show. Unfortunately, we're probably never going to see that movie, or at least if we do, it'll be a decade away. But yeah, that's what I think about The Flash. And in first place, I have Arrow. Arrow is by far my favorite TV show of all time. It matches Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil in quality for me. Well, unbiased, like I'm kind of biased towards Arrow, but to be honest, Arrow never really reaches, the quality of Daredevil or that. But I just think that this show has so much going for it, and I think it's consistently the best show in the universe. Season 4 and 6 are a little... Well, Season 4 is the only bad season of Arrow, I would consider. I think Season 6 is underwhelming, and Season 3 is definitely not as good as the others. But even that said, I still find reasons to watch those seasons. I will still be like, wow, I enjoyed this in that season, I enjoyed that in that season. There's 7 or 8 episodes from Season 4 that I'd point to, and I would say I love that episode. Yes, some of its characters aren't the greatest, but I just think that Arrow is one of the better comic book TV shows we have out there. Oliver Queen is so good in this show, and I honestly think that this is the best interpretation of Oliver Queen we've had, even out of the comics. Comic book Oliver Queen is good, I like him, but his origin story has never been that interesting. He mainly just got stuck on an island that was on his own for 5 months. He learned how to use a bow and arrow. Some drug dealers landed there, or some drug manufacturers landed there. He stole their boat and he came back to the city. That was pretty much his origin story. Arrow took his origin and shot it in with Coley. I think that it's his origin story in this is one of the better comic book origin stories of anything. Lian Yu, they really made the island feel like a character. They really gave Oliver a purpose. His friendship with Slade Wilson is amazing. There's just so much to love from seasons 1, 2, and 5 of Arrow, and season 7 so far is also seeming to be shaping up to be pretty great. But yeah, that's the Arrowverse shows ranked in my opinion. But what do you think? Where would you put certain shows? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? And yeah, so Arrowverse, classic Oliver Queen. Bye!